you all want to introduce yourselves to who you are?
Yeah, for a while.
So, yeah.
Sharon, I've just asked everyone to put their names into the chat bar rather than go through a full introductions at the meeting. We can put their name in the chat bar. We'll keep a note of that.
Okie dokie, 2 wee seconds. Yeah, I'm just getting a quote out, getting along this as I'm doing it. Irene Lister for Community Partnerships. Deal will record the notes of the meeting. Any apologies tonight?
Yes, Chair, there's a number of apologies tonight. We have apologies from James McKinstry, Brian Lafferty, Neil MacLeod, although Alan Hendry is here representing Neil MacLeod tonight, Laura Campbell from Who Cares, Adriana Spina from Glenmavis Community Council, James Fagan, although Rebecca Loudon is here in place of James tonight, Pamela Smith from the Health and Wellness Hub, Reverend Donald from Cairnlea Church, and also we've received recent apologies from Maddie Halliday. So Maddie has asked that we move her presentation to the next meeting. I'm not sure if you were on when that was raised, Chair. That's it.
No,
that's the apologies I have just now.
Right, thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting in matters arising. The winter service policy item previously raised at February and March. In a meeting with John Ashcroft will provide the update. The chair of the community board arrangements.
So, excuse me, Chair, John's here to cover that point at matters arising, so we just maybe get John to come in at that point. That's okay.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Chair. I don't know whether anybody can see me on that on the screen there, but my video is not working by the looks of it. If I just share,
yeah, we can't see you, John, but we can hear you. Okay,
right, that's fine. Can I share my screen then, and I'll just do a short presentation on it?
Yeah, that's fine, John.
To speaking, please. Hello, can you hear me? This is Ian McIndoe. Hello,
hi Ian, it's John.
Can you hear me?
What the hell's going on here again?
It's breaking away. Nothing now. Is it John Ashcroft speaking?
It's John Ashcroft here.
Carry on, John.
Ian.
Right.
Sorry,
I'm
just trying to...
just no photograph up here.
Yeah, I apologise for that. Yeah, my video is not working at the minute.
That's fine.
So I'll just go through the the presentation if anybody. No, I'll go through the presentation. If anybody's got any questions they want to ask, then I'm happy to ask them. So this is just around the council's winter service policy. So every local authority undertake or produce a winter service policy and procedures. They do that annually, and it's approved at committee annually. North Lanarkshire's was approved at the Environment and Transportation Committee on the 25th of August this year. The policy sets out the minimum levels of service the council will provide during the winter period, and it's based on a risk-based approach, and that's done through what's called well-managed highway infrastructure, and that's a national document that every local authority uses to produce their policy. I've put the legal context up there, and that's the part in the legislation. So it's Section 34 of the Roads Scotland Act, and I've highlighted the bit that says considers reasonable, because it's reasonable action that we should be actually undertaking. There's never going to be a chance that we will treat every single road, and therefore the policy is the sort of cornerstone of where we start from. Forecasting, we get forecast information through the West of Scotland Local Authority Consortium, and that's led by South Lanarkshire Council, and our forecaster is a company called Meteo Group. This slide shows you sort of an example of the information that we get. So you get a short-term forecast, which is the day forecast. You've got a 2 to 5 day forecast, and you get a 6 to 10 day forecast. Once you start getting beyond the 2 to 5 day, the information can be very variable. It can change fairly quickly. So the reliance really is on, for us and decision makers, is actually on the 24-hour, and probably less so as the days go on. This is another extract of the information we get, so I'm not sure how clear that is, but I'm happy to share the slides if anybody wants to have a look at them. That tells us the road surface temperatures. It tells us if we're going to have snow, black ice, hoar frost, and any other hazards that we're going to get. And I don't know whether you can see this. I'll circle that with my mouse. Each of these wee blocks here is a winter action that was called, and that's through our winter controller. Over and above the policy, we've also got a number of other resources there. So we've got 5 weather forecasting stations at the 803 Kilsyth, the A73 at Browns Hill, the B7066 at Hurst, A73 at Stand, and Sykes Side Street and Coat Bridge. And the majority of them, other than Kilsyth, have actually got a camera facility on them, but they give us the road surface temperature, the air temperature, and all that information goes into our forecasters to enable them to provide us the information to inform the actions that we take. In the past, it used to be that when we would call an action, you would actually do an action across the whole network. We undertook an exercise with our weather provider, and our network's now split into 3 domains, which is north, east, and west. So that means that if the north area isn't being affected by a weather event, we can move resources into the east or into the west, wherever we actually need that resource to be moved to. Looking at a road network, so our total carriageway length is 1,625 kilometres. Our primary network is 583 kilometres, and our secondary routes are 337 kilometres. So in total, that's about 57% of our network that we actually cover as a priority. We've got 2,903 kilometres of footways. Our primary footway network is 190 kilometres, which is 7%. All of that information is available on the website. So if you go onto the council's website, if you type in winter, you'll be able to find all our routes. It'll have all our grip bin locations, and it'll have footpath priorities on that as well, which were added on last year. In terms of our treatment, Amy provides our treatment. We've got 14 primary carriageway routes. When we're doing the primary carriageway routes, we spread 85 tonnes of salt as part of that action. We've got 13 secondary carriageway routes, and again, it's 47 tonnes of salt when we're actually doing that. We've got 31 primary footpath routes, and we use mainly the mini tractors, although we do hand casting because there's areas where the tractor can't get in through accessibility. And again, we're using 33 tonnes of salt when we're doing that operation. Unfortunately for me, the time is closing again. So winter period starts on the 1st of October and it ends generally in April. So we actually undertake winter over more of the year than we do the summer type works, and it can be extended into May depending on the long-term forecast. We take action when temperature reaches 1 degree, and that's the road surface temperature, it's not the air temperature. And the action's based on a decision matrix, and I'll show a wee bit of that in the next slide. Again, we've got further tools to assist decision making, such as the weather stations that are covered. We use a CCTV centre, and we get one of the main bits of information back is through the intelligence for the drivers, because they're the ones that are actually being directly affected by the event. And this is the sort of decision matrix here, so you can see that it talks about different temperatures and the likelihood and the probability, precipitation, how that's going to impact, whether it's going to still be wet, it's going to be raining through the event, and all of that informs how we actually take action and when we take action. There may be times that we're taking action through a rainy period, but that's because the temperatures are still low and there's a likely of freezing. Amy hold the biggest or our main supply of salt for the winter operations because they're delivering it. So we've got different levels of salt depending on the period of year. So the normal operating quantity through the peak period, which is November to March, is about 10,000 tonnes with a minimum requirement of 6,000, and that drops from 6 down to 3 during April and October. And then again, from May to August, there's a requirement of 1,000 tonnes there, but you generally find that companies buy in their salt during the summer period, and because it's more cost effective rather than actually waiting through the winter period. As a council, we've got a resilience stock as well at Bellshill Transport Depot. We've got 10,000 tonnes of salt in the dome, and that was constructed in 2010 following the major weather event. So well equipped to deal with weather events in the years going forward. Again, we've only had to call on this additional resource on one occasion, which was in 2018, where we only used probably 200 or 300 tonnes of salt there, but there wasn't the supply chain issues that we had when we were back in 2010. Grip bins, the council provide a number of grip bins. So last year there was a decision matrix added onto the provision of grip bins, and that was to manage the number of grip bins, make sure that they were provided in the right locations. There wasn't an overabundance of grip bins in one location and nothing in another location. So that decision matrix is applied when we get any requests for grip bins. And again, there's a number of considerations there, such as road geometry, slopes, nearby bins, shops, hospitals, all of that's taken into consideration as part of that matrix. Just to give you an idea of how that's grown, so in 2010, when we started the contract with Amy, we had 760 grip bins. We've currently got 2,795 grip bins. In actual fact, that's probably slightly less than where we are just now. It's an increase in asset because we're always getting new streets added, new builds coming on onto the network, and always a new requirement. To fill all of the bins, it's 2,350 tonnes of salt, so that is almost the sort of total salt requirement for the low level that Amy have got to keep in one fell swoop just to fill all of the bins. It normally takes us, if we were to fill every single bin as part of one exercise, probably between 3 and 4 weeks. And again, that would be dependent on the weather, because the resources would be directed to treating the streets, because that's where they're best equipped to help everybody. The council has a number of contingency plans, so we've got a severe weather plan. So if we get to that point that we need to call on additional resources, we've got contracts in place with other contractors. There's what's called the M80 and Associated Roads Disruptive Event Response Plan. I know it runs off the tongue, but that was following a number of events that circulated round about the M80, and that was developed through work with colleagues in Police Scotland, through the operating companies for the motorway, etc. And each service have got contingency plans as well. So health and social care will have plans to deal with the most vulnerable people. NHS, we work with them, will provide assistance where they've identified needs for medication, etc. So all of that's in place, and there's some groups that have got some community resilience there as well. You'll be glad to hear I'm almost at the end. So budget and finance. So our budget for winter is 3.256 million, and that is based on our average winter spend. It discounts 2010 and 2018, where there was a considerable spend above our normal budget. The service don't hold a winter contingency, but that's actually met by the council centre. So for example, last year we spent 4.7 million, so the £1.5 million had to be met by the council centre rather than the road service. I've not put figures on this, but I'll give you a brief thingy, and I've not done that because that's quite commercially sensitive information. So the cost of filling grip bins to the council, if we were to do one fill of every grip bin, we're talking over £250,000 to undertake that exercise. The basic facility is all the standby costs for Amy having their staff available for 24 hours a day for us to undertake winter, and that cost is around about £1 million. Primary treatment for a single treatment is under £10,000, and secondary and primaries are roughly about £6,000 there for each treatment that we actually undertake. We've got contractual implications, so because Amy undertake the winter service for the council, any change means that there's a variation order to the contract. So an example of that would be we were actually treating the accesses to the COVID vaccination centres and testing centres, so they were added onto our primary routes to make sure that the vaccination programme could continue through this period. So that's a change. Normally these changes are minor through a winter period, because the network doesn't change as much through the year. The routes are optimised to maximise the efficiency of the Amy fleet, and we're normally looking for the routes to be treated within 3 hours. In terms of resources, Amy provides a minimum of 30 gritters and resources for treating footpaths. I've got our land management teams, our land maintenance teams that have got their own tractors and various other plant and equipment. We use that. We've got a contract in place with a number of other suppliers, and we also use council partners and Amy's other supply chain, as well as other council services. I'm going to finish off with one picture, and this is just a reminder. I mean, this is probably, but this was back in 2018. When you get to levels like this, everybody will be looking at, well, can you go in and plough that? When you get to this stage, your plough's not really, it doesn't really operate in these conditions. So you're actually back into a situation where you're using diggers, JCBs, tractors, and it's an entirely different winter service that we're providing once we get to that stage. And it does take much longer than when you're using a normal plough, where you're dealing with sort of low level volumes of snow. Sorry about that if that's a quick run through, but I hope that sort of gave an insight into where we are as a council in terms of delivering winter service. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody's got.
There's a point on the chat bar, Chair, from Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Chair? Sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Councillor Morgan.
Matt, can I let you know that Councillor Stocks, he can see us all, but he's no sound at all.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Pettigrew. Councillor Morgan, you're on mute.
You hear me now, Matt?
Yeah, I can hear you now, Councillor Morgan. You've been back on mute again, Councillor Morgan.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. No, you've been back on mute. I don't know what's happening with your
Right,
device.
Matt, are we okay now?
Yep.
Sorry. Right. I'll make the point quick, John. Obviously, a gremlin in here is telling me to rush to this point. The point is this, that irrespective of how soon and how detailed our presentations are, and I've received these for 30 odd years as a councillor, we'll still get the constant critics later on this year when the snow inevitably comes at some stage, saying, here you are, North Lanarkshire Council's been caught again. That is an excellent presentation, John. I noticed that you said it had been presented to the Environmental Committee as Environment and Transport on the 25th of August. So for all those constant critics of the council, who every year take great pleasure in criticising the council, if they took as much time actually addressing the issue, there would be probably a clearer pathways out there. But is there any way we can increase our communications of that information, John? It's okay to say that is online. Not everybody is online. Can we make booklets available? Can we leave them in council offices? Albeit there's a restriction there because of COVID. Can we get this word out so that we can minimise as much as possible? The ne'er-do-wells who seem to take great pleasure in just saying North Lanarkshire Council's been caught again. We've not been caught again. We do this continuously every year. It's just that people don't want to listen to good news. If we can get that news out, John, if there's any measures or ways you can think of increasing that, I'd be very interested to know. Thank
Chair, you're
You're
on
on mute, Chair.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Councillor Morgan, we didn't get all of that because you kept breaking up.
Chair, I think I got the gist of it. I think Councillor
Okay.
Morgan was just really asking about communication, and to be fair, we had that discussion with a recent working group, and we had the discussion about communication. So I'm going to take that with my colleagues in corporate comms.
Did
to
John
see
hear those points?
Yeah, I did, Councillor Morgan. I got the gist of what you were saying there. So I'll take that on board with corporate comms to find out, is there any other ways, can we explore other avenues to get that information out there? I'm also conscious that not everybody has access to digital and access to online information, so I'll take that on board and see what we can do as a council to improve that communication wider.
Chair Michael McBride wants to come in, and Councillor Beveridge after that.
Michael?
Thanks, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. John, just to say thanks very much. Michael McBride here, the Secretary of Kinnaird Community Council. I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but a few months back on the Community Board meeting, I did suppose that this was put to the Community Board to get a bit of a better understanding. And apologies, I'd come in late. It was an access problem, but I got some of your report, which was very detailed and welcome. So thanks very much for that, John. Just a few things that I wanted to run through was that obviously the communication plan of it, and I think Councillor Morgan touched on that a bit as well, is very crucial for the general public to be fully aware of basically the planning that goes ahead for the winter policy, the challenges that actually will happen if we have a severe winter. And I think also there's, as everyone probably on this call is aware, and I know I was aware of it the last time we had some severe weather. I think it was January time or February or December, I can't remember. But the main things, as you will probably know, John, was about clearing roads, clearing footpaths, grit bins, etc., etc. The ones that we all expect. But I think there's very many people out there who don't understand the background, are aware of the background, and aware of the huge challenges of logistics. So I understand, and I agree with Councillor Morgan about obviously what he's been commenting on. But I think one of the things really that astounds me is that just one of your last points was about if we have a severe winter, and the council has got to use reserve money to supplement to try and get things moving again. Personally, I would be saying that a demand is to go to the Scottish Government to support councils, because that is a huge amount of money that's taken from reserves to be put into the winter policy when there's a very severe weather. Because as we know, the weather is changing so much, and there's so many places that get hit with floods. And I would probably say you could link in with when there's severe snow, which causes a problem to communities as well. So I welcome obviously the plan you've put forward and the understanding and the detail for it. There's only one thing I would like to ask on a specific thing, and it's something that quite a lot of local people do ask about, is how early can people request grit bins to be filled if they have an empty one or a 50% empty one? How early can they actually request that? Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. In answer to your last point there, you can request that right through the year, so there is no time
Okay, thanks.
on that. We can fill them during the summer as well as the winter period.
Thank you.
Councillor
Thank you,
Cotton,
Chair.
Councillor Beveridge.
Thanks, thanks, Sharon. Sorry, Chair. I was just going back to what Tommy was raising. That I was part of that the group that looked at the winter management policy. Now there was changes made. One of the key things was in communication, which John Ashcroft touched on. I think it's very important that we communicate indeed what we're doing, where the bins are, how to get the bins filled when they are emptied. And the last, it was March, we were cut out in March, especially in outlying villages / outlying schemes, etc., where it was problematic. But that working group was very successful, and there was lots of changes that was made. It was ultimately okayed at the Environment Committee, the last Environment Committee. But it is, as Tommy said, it's all about communication and getting it out there, because the feeling of isolation when you're stuck in these 2 or 3 feet of snowdrifts is pretty poor. But I think the council's getting there a bit. Thanks.
Anybody else? Any comments? Anybody else? No. No.
No, nobody else, Jerry.
We'll move on. The community partnership updates. Oh, wait a minute, I'm lost here. 2 seconds. I'm a wee ahead of myself here. It's just a wee reminder that the community board is being chaired on rotation, a rotational basis between myself and Michael McBride. Michael will chair the next meeting in December. Okie dokie, Michael.
That's fine, thanks, Sharon.
Thank you. The general community board business and updates act now, and we'll have Maddie Halliday.
Chair, just to let you know, Maddie has submitted an apology due to a family crisis and was asked to be moved to the next round awards, and the committee, the presentation will be shared as soon as possible with the group. So you can move on to the next item, Chair.
We'll move on to number 6. It's driving digital locally, and Lynn Gowell, Enterprise Development Officer of Communities, she'll provide an update. Lynn, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Can you all hear me, yeah?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thanks very much, Chair. So this is my 8th community board, so I should be able to do this update very quickly for you all. Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here, and thanks for allowing me to join your board tonight, just to provide a quick update on where we're at with Driving Digital Locally framework. As I said earlier, my name is Lynn Gow. I'm the Communication and Engagement Lead for the Council's Digital NL programme. You might recall back in March at your board, one of my colleagues attended and delivered a presentation on the Digital NL plans. And through Digital NL, the Council aims to provide online anytime services, which really meets the needs of our residents. However, we need to truly understand what those needs are. And as such, we've now launched the Driving Digital Locally framework. I just wanted to give you a quick update on where I'm at with the progress on that framework. At the end of the presentation back in March, our ask was for volunteers to join our newly created digital subgroup. Now, the purpose of that group was to maximise the use of digital services across communities within North Lanarkshire, to drive effective collaboration and engagement, and to develop the Driving Digital Locally framework. We did receive a number of volunteers, which I was delighted about. The group's made up of all 9 community board areas, and we're going to meet on a monthly basis. The initial meeting took place on the 12th of August, and it was chaired by Councillor Duffy in his role as convener of Transformation and Digitisation Committee. A draft terms of reference had already been presented and approved at the Digital NL board back in June, and so therefore I presented it at the digital subgroup for further approval. There was some amendments and feedback from the group, and it will be resubmitted at next month's for final approval. We also agreed going forward for future meetings that we would have a rolling chair and a rolling vice chair, with myself as secretary for continuity. As part of the agenda at that group, we split into breakout rooms to discuss what the key priorities for the group going forward were. Discussion focused around better access to public digital skills within our communities, trying to avoid duplication and support retraining in the community. There was also some further discussion around supporting early action to achieve a better understanding of what digital inclusion means for each of the 9 community areas, and also across our equalities group, and also looking at ongoing support for local work linked in your LOIPs. Since the meeting I've done a bit of a mapping exercise just to make sure that we've got the right representation on this digital subgroup. And we've agreed that we would have 2 representatives from each of the board areas. Now, unfortunately, I've not actually got any representatives from the Airdrie area, sorry, the Airdrie board, and I would be really, really delighted if anybody would like to join. So as that group progresses, we will keep the board up to date with what's going on. In June, we took part in a digital inclusion seminar, organised, very well organised by Van El, and hosted on behalf of the Digital North Lanarkshire Partnership. It was chaired by the Council's Chief Executive, Des Murray, and it was aimed at those in the partnership and other organisations to explore how we can all work more effectively to increase digital inclusion across North Lanarkshire, and also to reaffirm the commitment to the Digital North Lanarkshire Partnership. Again, we split the delegates into workshops to discuss key actions that we all need to take to accelerate digital inclusion. Now, the final report is not due to be published for another couple of weeks yet, but early overarching themes that were identified in each of the groups were increased knowledge of digital skills needs amongst our communities, and a digital skills action plan was suggested and discussed, increased investment, especially around infrastructure, and better collaboration amongst our partner organisations. Now, a lot of these key actions, the Digital North Lanarkshire Partnership will be taken forward. I really thought it was a great seminar, and I think it could be something that could be replicated at a community board level, and I think it's worth discussing the merits of it. And just finally, I've been working with the Council's partner Agilisis and my colleagues in Housing Solutions on a new project to try to target older residents in our community, in our retirement complexes, to help them get online, help them to adopt new technologies that will help with their loneliness, improve their overall happiness and well-being. It's going to be funded through Connecting Scotland, and I'm actually delighted to say that just this week we've taken delivery of 200 brand new iPads and MiFi boxes that are going to help to support these elderly residents. We're going to tie this up with the Council's own community champions who will support these elderly residents once they take delivery of their brand new iPad. Also looking at our youth support and trying to develop an intergenerational project, which has always worked very well in the past. And I think that's my update for tonight. But what I will leave you with tonight is I would be delighted to speak to anybody about joining our digital subgroup. And what I'll do is I'll just pop my email address in the chat bar. And if anybody wants to chat to me about it at a later date, quite happy to take that offline. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you, Lynn. Anybody, any questions?
What the hell's happened here?
Nobody? We'll move on to the next one. It is the housing strategy update from Audrey McGuinness.
Sorry.
Business.
Apologies, Councillor Tomaso here. Just to say to thank Lynn for her presentation, and it was just to suggest that, you know, in case we miss anybody who's not on the call tonight, we put an email out to everybody that's usually included in the emails on the two.
Sorry, yeah, just as a response, thanks, Councillor Damasio. Monday's the final community board for me to do my update, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to email out to all of the chairs and just thanking you for bringing me along, and then again asking if anybody wants to join the group. So I'll certainly do that next week.
That's great. Thanks. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. The next thing is the housing strategy. It's an update.
Sorry, Chair, Councillor Morgan's asked to come in.
Sorry, Councillor Morgan, in you come.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I heard that presentation there. I was disappointed I didn't have anything advanced to read on it, because there was a lot of stuff to take in there. I'm well aware that digitisation is society-wide, and we're talking here about North Lanarkshire. But I would appreciate the officers would provide us, as one of the 9 area committees, with something localised. That was a lot. I won't go to my own. What do you call it? Likes or unlikes. But it's difficult for me to keep up with technology. A lot of that was double Dutch to me. Now, many of you would follow it. But I do think it's incumbent upon officers when they're coming here to give us something that is localised to our area. We then get told at the end, oh, by the way, there's 200 iPads coming. Why are we not getting told about all this? Where's it going? How many are already here? How does that stack up compared to other areas? Now, we've always done that, not in an envious sense, but we've always compared what we're doing with other areas for good practice. Now, I know there's a report coming up from the LDP on digital inequality. Are we taking that as separate? Where we can ask specific questions about what's been done in digitisation in our schools? Because if officers are going to come back here with a report like was given there was not a local school mentioned. There was a couple of groups mentioned, but I do think it should be localised so that we're aware what's going on in the Airdrie area, Airdrie and villages. Otherwise, it's council-wide and it's lost, it's nebulous, it's hard to get a grip of. But Chair, is it still your intention to take the LDP report where there are specific questions I have to ask here for groups of marginalised groups and their access to digitisation within that report? Is it still your intention to take that separately?
Is this to me?
Thanks very much for your comments, Councillor Morgan. Absolutely, I'll take these on board.
Can I ask where these 200 the iPads are going?
So yeah, they are going. They've been distributed. Sorry, the project's really at its infancy. What we've got is we've got 125 residents already interested. It's going to retirement complexes across North Lanarkshire, and I don't actually have the list, but certainly something I can come back on and feed back to the group and let you know exactly where they're going and which area they're going to.
Because I can't see what use they're going to be to sight impaired people and people
Pardon?
with problems.
Well,
on iPads, I don't see the point of it.
Sorry, I didn't catch.
Is there going to be training given out?
Yes,
with iPads?
yes, absolutely. That's what I said. That what we've got is we've got a programme of digital champions within the council, and they will then support that person on a one-to-one basis of what they need when they get the iPad, and that'll be on a 6-month. It's a 6-month project with them. They'll get one-to-one training from the digital champions.
Can I ask where we come up with the number 200? When there's more than 200 people out there.
Yeah, but we're only approved for 200.
Sorry?
We were approved for 200. We've applied for them through Connecting Scotland.
Can I ask who approved the 200?
Connecting Scotland, which is part of the Scottish Government.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that
Thank you
everything?
very
Is that everybody? Thank you, Lynn. Thanks, Lynn. The next on the agenda is the housing strategy, and it's an update from Audrey McGuinness, Business Strategy Manager from Enterprise and Communities. Audrey, are you here?
Yes, I am indeed. Thanks very much, Chair. Appreciate it. Just to correct you, I'm a strategy officer. I'm not a strategy manager. Just so everybody's clear, I'm one of the. It's all right. It's fine. It's just in case people think I'm all of a sudden got promoted to strategy manager. That was all. Good evening, everybody, and thanks very much for inviting me along. Really want to just take a very brief presentation with you about our local housing strategy. Now, this is a consultative draft that's been sitting on the council's website since June, and we're actively looking for people's views. We did have a slightly longer presentation planned, but we've had to cut that down. But I understand from the people that facilitate the community boards in terms of admin have already circulated the wider presentation. So I hope that's the case. But if not, please let me know and we'll make sure that it gets shared later. Just so it's just because I've been told it's been shared already. So I'm hoping that is the case, and I just want to double check. Are you okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, Audrey, can you speak up a wee bit because it's quite dull?
Oh, am I not loud enough? Sorry. Well, what I'll do is I'll hold this up to my mouth, because can you hear me better now?
Slightly. Thanks.
Sorry. Do you know, it's funny because some of my other colleagues have been saying they've got similar problems, and anyone who knows me will tell you that I am by no means quiet. So apologies. I'll try and speak up a bit. Wait, now I'll share my screen. Get it to work. Right, so can everybody see that?
No.
No.
No? Hang on, wait a minute. Maybe I've not hit the right button. Hang on a second. Sorry, apologies. I'm not used to WebEx. It's something that I'm not used to using, so I'm still trying to get the hang of it. Screen one. I think the problem is that, there it is now. It's below my line. Is that better? Is it coming up now?
Yes.
Yes, that's it.
Cool. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Takes me all my time to work out what I'm doing half the time. So many apologies. Okay, so I'm from the housing strategy team, and I'm briefly going to take you through our consultative draft strategy. We are going to all the community boards, either myself or some of my colleagues, and hopefully that we catch everybody as part of that. The one thing I would say is that the local housing strategy is a very technical and government document, and it's a North Lanarkshire wide document. So just so you understand, this is a wider overarching document that deals with effectively the legal duties and implications that are placed on us by the Scottish Government. So just before I get into the main bit of the presentation. So in terms of what we've been doing, in terms of developing our local housing strategy, we reviewed local and national evidence to identify the key housing challenges, which means we look at statistical data from inside North Lanarkshire, but also right across Scotland. We also looked at a range of consultation that we carried out in phase one. Now, you may remember that we did actually come to the community boards last year and did the beginnings of the consultation there. And we've actually had over 1,000 people sharing their views on the housing priorities as part of the feedback on our website. And you may recall, as I say, that we presented these key issues last November to the community boards. It was published in June this year, the actual draft consultation document, and it's open for another week or two yet, so people do still have time to have their say. So what is it we're trying to achieve? Well, what we want to do is to make North Lanarkshire the place to live through the provision of high quality housing and support and sustainable communities that enable people to thrive and prosper. And that's our key vision for the strategy. And the vision is underpinned by 7 strategic housing outcomes that cover the key priority areas of housing delivery, sustainable communities, tackling homelessness, promoting independent living, health and well-being, tackling climate change and fuel poverty, and improving house condition and standards of quality in the private rented sector, and in the private sector as a whole, but as part of that, the private rented sector. Excuse me. So what is it we want to do? So we want to ensure that everyone has access to a home that is affordable and meets their individual needs and a place that they want to stay. So we want to increase access to a broader range of housing tenures and consider ways in which we can use planning policy and land to actually support that. And we'll continue to deliver high quality new affordable homes and increase our provision of wheelchair and accessible homes. We also want to expand the use of the off-the-shelf purchases from private developers and open, an open market purchase scheme to increase our supply. And we also want to collaborate with our partners to tackle homelessness and improve access to permanent housing and wraparound support and reduce the time spent in temporary accommodation. We recognise that in order for communities to thrive, homes and places need to work in tandem, and our actions focus on delivering homes in our town centres and progressing our tower reprovisioning programme. We'll work with our partners and other services to locate homes closer to services, facilities and transport links so that homes are well connected and support well-being. We also want to ensure homes are high quality and energy efficient, so we will continue to implement energy efficiency improvements in our own housing stock to reduce our carbon emissions and work towards the Council's net zero target of 2030. For the private sector, we will work with owner-occupiers and private landlords to improve compliance and look at ways in which we can help support owners and private landlords address disrepair and maintenance and take preparatory actions ahead of new energy efficiency regulations coming into force. So in terms of our next steps, we are just about to complete phase 2 consultation. That's where we're at just now, closes in the next week or two. The feedback will be used to inform our final local housing strategy. We will be going to hopefully November committee to seek approval of the strategy, and at that point we'll also have to submit it to the Scottish Government. And we anticipate that we will be adopting the local housing strategy in full late on in 2021. So there's links there to view the strategy, there's the online survey, and there's the feedback that you can send to the housing team. And thanks for listening. Has anybody got any questions? And I will attempt to stop sharing my screen. Does that mean stop sharing my screen now?
Yes, it is,
I
Audrey.
had problems the other night there, so apologies. Just checking.
Thanks, Audrey. Anybody, any questions? Anybody, any questions?
There's nothing in the chat bar, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move on to agenda number 9 in the agenda, and it's the community partnership updates. The first one is a board development session with Matt Costello. Matt, over to you.
Chair, there's an item 8 before that, if that's okay for yourself.
Oh, did I not do it? Oh, sorry. Well, it's you anyway, Matt.
Yeah, it's
Sorry
me, just
about that.
it's okay, just to go
Flexible
back to
funding
yeah.
with Matt Costello for digital.
Okay.
Will provide an update. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Chair. This report that was distributed with the papers, just to update on the report that previously came to the board, demonstrating the additional funding that had been issued across North Lanarkshire relating to the flexible funding arrangements. It highlights a few areas of work in terms of the work carried out by the communities team, colleagues in community learning and development, and also our financial inclusion team. Appendix 1 shows the funding for local community groups that were awarded funding earlier this year. And in terms of the digital update for this, it's just to advise the community board that a second round of funding to support, it's not fully in relation to digital inclusion, but provides some support in relation to asking groups, local community groups, to put in a bid for some other funding the council has in relation to to support digital inclusion. We're asking groups to apply for funding up to £1,000 for a group to apply for different devices that might support the work that they're doing in their local communities. That closes on the 6th of September, but it's been out there for like the last month or so. Groups for a chance to put in applications for funding. And we look forward to assessing those applications and hopefully be able to give a number of groups some devices through that application process. The second part to that, and it touches on something that was mentioned earlier, was in relation to training. And a second part of that fund will provide training in conjunction with partners, potentially the college, North Lanarkshire College, and other groups, to provide support to local groups in terms of training that may allow some groups to embark on trainer courses that will benefit not only their own groups but also other parties within the local community who access those community groups. So that's all I wanted to do in that one, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Andy? Thanks, Matt. Anybody, any questions?
Hi there, it's Jim
Morgan.
Moffat from Hope from Autism.
Tommy Morgan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Chair, with your permission, if you want.
Through Chair, sorry.
Jim Moffat.
Yep, it's a question for Matt, Chair.
Yes, Jim.
Go ahead. Yep. It's regarding the digital fund you mentioned. I've been asked to get some clarification on the guidance where it states funding will not apply to groups which have received funding through NLC, existing or health and social care, Lanarkshire procurement and tendering arrangements. Would that exclude groups like Hope for Autism who receive funding from NLC?
Well, only if it's related to the services that you're applying for the funding for, Jim. If it's something that's funded already, then we wouldn't look to fund it again. But if it's something different in relation to what you're undertaking, a different aspect of the project work, then it certainly would be considered.
That's great, Matt. That answers my question. Thanks very much.
No problem.
Anybody else?
Councillor Morgan's on the chat bar and Councillor Damasio.
Councillor Morgan?
Thank you. Is that okay, Sharon? Can I come in now?
Yes.
Sharon, having read this report, and it does touch on what I found earlier about a broader report that didn't get too specific. This one is specific, and it's very interesting what's going on locally. And I think we have to give credit where it's due. This is money that's come from the Scottish Government. And I'm certainly not someone that doesn't give praise when it's worth it. So in that flexible fund and the tackling financial insecurity funds, significant sums have come. In fact, they've been revised twice, and it's come this way. Now, everybody would have a different order of prioritisation of where that money should go. But under COVID, I think it would be difficult to disagree with the priorities of food, clothing, shelter with heat, and health. After that, you've then got this issue of digitisation. It's part of this report. And I have to be honest and say it, Chair, and I'll say it with other members here and all officers here. It is extremely disappointing that we're sitting here tonight talking about the rollout of digitisation, and I see no one specifically from Education Department, the biggest funded budgeted department in North Lanarkshire Council by far. We should have somebody in seniority from that department telling us how they're availing themselves of this particular funding to reach those individuals. Jim Moffat asked about groups. They're accommodated in group applications. But there are individuals. Nobody likes to say, I'm poor and I don't have a computer. But I want to know. I want to see officers at meetings like this and ask, what are you doing in secondary schools? What are you doing in primary schools? How many don't have access to these digitisations? Because we know the problems in education, we're going to lose a generation. Why is there no one here from that department to answer that particular question? And how much emphasis is given to prioritising education after those lists of needs? Food, clothing and shelter are needs. Education, you could say, is a need, but it has to be up there. And it's only in the mix in there because we mentioned digitisation. Disappointing. Nobody here from education and families. Almost every other department represented. And we've got senior members for the North, the Central and the South. None of them here tonight. I want to know how we're reaching in a digital sense. Those individuals, those families that don't have IT, those families that don't have computers, those families that don't even possibly have power. How are we reaching them to deliver these during this extremely important time of need?
Chair, Matt Costello, can I come back in for a second there, please?
Yes, you can, Matt.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Morgan. I'll certainly take that back and we'll ensure we'll bring a report to the next round of community boards, giving you information relating to how the service is dealing with digital exclusion within schools, etc. I'll make sure we get something further to feedback on that.
Can I bring something up here? I actually know for a fact that there's a few local primary schools in our area and they do give out laptops to families. I know that kids within the area that their laptops have actually broke and the school has re-given them brand new. I don't know whether it's through education or whatever, but I do know that the schools do roll out laptops.
There's certainly been a lot of work done in relation to voluntary action, North Lanarkshire and the council in relation to the Connecting Scotland.
We should have somebody here from the department explaining that.
2 minutes. Matt?
No, just to clarify, this report was related to something slightly different, but we'll certainly make sure that a further report comes to the board relating to the issues that Councillor Morgan's raised.
Anybody else wishing to raise anything?
Councillor Damasio is on the chat bar.
Sorry, Paul. Councillor Damasio.
Hi there. Mark, one of the questions I had you've answered in terms of the deadline for applications, so thanks for that. Obviously, it doesn't give groups very long, so I think we've got 4 days. Is that the case? 6th of September. If they haven't already applied. What was I going to say? Obviously, welcome the 5 million funding, and it's going to vital areas of support. Just on 2.1.2, it mentions the work that's went in. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the page myself. It mentions the work that's went into helping individuals doing benefit checks and things like that as well, which generated 277,000 odd in additional benefits income for residents. I'd just be interested, quite like to see within the report as well, I'd just be interested to see a figure in terms of how many individuals and families that helped as well. If that would be possible to include that going forward, and if you're able to share that information.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Just very briefly, Chair. Yeah, absolutely. We'll feed that back to the financial inclusion team, Councillor Damasio, and ask for a further breakdown of that in relation to the number of families and individuals that were supported through that. And I take your point regarding the deadline for that. It was just that this just happens to be the request for information was issued about 4 weeks ago, so people did get quite a lot of notice to the groups. The community board was made aware of it, and a lot of community groups were also made aware of it around about 4 weeks ago. And I know the deadline is closing, but that's just, you're only finding out about that because this is obviously the date of the board is so close to at that stage. But we hopefully did give the groups quite a bit of time to make application.
Just on that again, if I may, Sharon. Just do you have an idea of how many not how many applications, but how well it's been? People have you been receiving plenty of applications thus far?
I'm not 100% sure the actual number we've got at the moment because it's just compiled by our administration team in the grants, part of the grants team. But we can certainly get, once we know we can get a figure for that, absolutely, and share that with the board, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And we'll move on to number 9 in the agenda, and it's the community partnership update. Number 1 is the board development sessions, and it's Matt again.
Thanks again, Chair. This report was brought to some information relating to the community board development sessions was brought to the last community board, and it's just to let you know that we've started the process in relation to identifying what training needs the community board and a number of the representatives who attend the community board have highlighted. To date, we've had about just under a 30% feedback in relation to the board members, and there's a number of areas that they've picked up on about main areas for development. This is just an interim report at the moment because we extended the feedback period by about 3 weeks, so we're still pulling together some of the information in relation to that. But what the community board representatives want to have further development in relation to is about community asset transfer, the local development programme, participatory budgeting, local outcome improvement plans, budget processes, partnership working, managing conflict, managing priorities, and how we address ensuring seldom heard groups become more involved in the process. That's the main areas that people have identified at this stage. What we'll do now is we'll further analyse the work, the feedback we've had over the last few weeks. A timetable will be developed for training sessions that will be produced. That will be shared with the board, and people will be invited to come and to the training sessions as that's rolled out over the next few months. But there'll be a further, more detailed report provided for the community board at the next cycle, Chair.
Thank you, mate. Any questions? No? I'm going to number 2, Matt, and it's the local development programme, the LPD. And it's you again.
Thanks again. Chair, this report, as it was issued with the papers as well, this relates to highlighting some of the prioritisation for some of the projects that are within the local development programme for the next financial years. It gives some proposals about adding some projects to the report and some proposed deletions with a wee bit of information in relation to both of them. And it's just to make the community board aware of that report, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Anybody, any questions? Michael McBride.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick thing on the local development plan, just to say thank you to Matt and Shan for not Shan, sorry, Christine for popping out to Cairnhill along with a member of the council to do the site visit of the 3 small proposed enhancement areas for the Cairnhill area. It was obviously very well received, and we had some members of the community council who also attended sporadically around the area, and that was pleasing to see as well. So just to say thanks for coming out and giving that some consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Anybody else get anything? Councillor Morgan.
There's
Yes,
Councillor.
I can hear.
Yes, yeah.
Councillor Morgan.
Sandy's okay, I'll go first.
You go first,
Thanks,
Tommy.
Convener.
There's no problem
Convener,
with that.
this report caught my eye. Thanks, Sandy. It's probably the same thing you're going to ask anyway, Sandy, because great minds think alike, so they say. Anyway, the bullet points that are on section 211, the bullet points that are on 211 there, they're always in every one of these reports. These are excellent projects. But what caught my eye, if that's not the wrong way to put this, is that there is a bullet point missing. And it's been on there for about 20 years. Is that where we put money into a project, the land has to be either in public ownership or a charity. Why is it not on this report? Is that an intentional omission? We know the controversy that happened recently and the differential between private land and public land, and how public services try to look after everybody's needs. But this money has specifically always been used on public land for public use or for charitable use. Why is it not in this report? And if it should be in the report, can we have it in there, please? Because it could lead to a whole Pandora's box of issues and problems later on.
Matt.
Hi, Chair. Yeah, we can certainly add. You're right. That did say in the past that the local development programme was only open to, we can only do projects on council-owned land, or there is a potential for third-party funding for other processes that take place. But you're absolutely right, and we'll make sure that's reinstated to the report.
That sounds good.
Sandy.
Yeah, I've never done it before. Right, thanks, Chair. It's just to do, to Matt, it's to do with the Air Drive area, which I think comes within this particular report. It actually says there, when I read it, Air Drive is deleted, rejected proposal by a majority. Somebody needs to switch off to their mute, I think.
Somebody speaking in the background.
I'm trying to mute. It's actually somebody called John. I'm trying to mute him at the moment, but it's not muting.
That's okay, Matt. It's not a problem. But it says in the report, Air Drive deleted, rejected proposal by a majority. Now, my understanding, in fact, is that it was rejected because there was a large minority vote. It was actually, there wasn't the proposal was passed, but there was a large minority vote, which indicated there wasn't sufficient support for the play park to go where we wanted it to go. And I think this is the only area in Airdrie that I know of that doesn't have a children's play park in it. There's a lot of children in the Air Drive estate. And I think it's something we should look at again to try and find another place to put a play park area there. I didn't know that it had been deleted, Matt. This is news to me. This has just come tonight because I'm just holding on here and hope that we'll find somewhere to put this play park in. But can we look at this again? Is that possible? Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Chair. Certainly, Councillor Watson, we're happy to have further discussions with you, see if there's any alternative sites that can look to that. We can reflect the outcome from the consultation that should come out with more accurately reflected in the report. We can certainly amend that, absolutely. But happy to have further discussions with you to see if there's any other sites that we can consider. But based on the discussions that took place and the consultation that was held, it wasn't one that was going to have sufficient support to go forward at that particular site. But if there's any other ideas, then it is something we can certainly look at.
Thanks, Mark. It's just something just to maybe try again to see if we can get something. It doesn't have to be a huge area, but just for the children in that area to give them something that the rest of the town has. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Sandy. I did see Councillor McNeill on the bar. I don't know whether he's here or not.
Yes, I'm here, Sharon.
I think you actually wanted to speak.
Yes, I did indeed, yeah. I wanted to make the point that what Tommy Morgan said is correct indeed. When we explored the area in the Maltland estate, the reason that couldn't go ahead was because the land wasn't community owned. It is in fact private land, and like Councillor Watson has said, I sincerely hope that we can find somewhere in the Airdrie area to provide a community facility. I think it wasn't the fact about a play park, it was the issue so much in Airdrie as the fact it was a football pitch issue, but I think there are a lot of children stay there. It's a busy road that goes past the entrance to the estate, so we need to have some sort of provision for the children in the area. That's the point I wanted to make. Thanks.
Can I just come back in there, Chair? I mean, they were two separate situations. The play park came first, and then the football situation came second. So one followed the other one. But yes, let's try and find, all of us, let's try and find something to help that estate. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Damasio.
It was just to briefly support what Councillor Watson and McNeill are saying in relation to, lack of such a provision within that area. I understand what Matt's saying about the consultation, but yeah, there's not much there for kids in the area.
Anybody else?
Chair, can I come in, please? I've made a little comment in the bar. It's Michael.
Oh, right. Sorry, Michael.
No, it's fine. It's no problem. Just similar to the same conversation, this conversation has raised in the community again, and we are actually going to be discussing this at our first Community Council face-to-face meeting on Sunday afternoon. It'll be on the agenda just to get people's views, still very early stages. There are some areas which are quite contentious, which have been recommended, but just to make you aware that we will be having a quick chat about it on Sunday at our Community Council, so watch this space as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Anybody else? We'll move on.
Yes, Sharon.
Could I make a comment, please?
Yes, Mrs. Lyle.
There has been a long effort to try and resolve the possibilities of making either play areas or other provision for the young people on Ayr Drive. And the difficulty seems always to be land that is apparently not used for any particular purpose, formally maintained by the council, is in private ownership. And that is a serious block in fundraising or indeed taking matters forward. There are also, of course, by the community facility over at Gartleys side of the Brownsburn Park, football fields that seem not to have much use. And it would seem to me that that is an answer for the football side of things, but of course it doesn't address the provision of play area for children. So that is something that has occupied the community council that I represent for a very long time, and we have not yet been able to get a satisfactory answer to it. It's not without giving it thought. We have given it a great deal of thought. It has appeared many times on our minutes and our procedures, and we wait for a miracle to happen, and then we will be able to have a play area at Air Drive.
Thank you, Dr. Blaine. Anybody else? Matt, you
Sharon,
want to answer?
yeah, Sharon, just a quick question. I don't know whether this will.
Councillor Beveridge.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies, Chair. I don't know whether this will be able to get answered here or not, but I know the Scottish Government just released funding for play areas, but I believe that would be for council-owned council-owned land play areas. Does anybody know if that is correct or not? Thanks.
Hi, can I come in there, Chair? Is that okay, Matt?
Yes, Matt.
Yeah, that is the case, Councillor Beveridge. We're actually got a meeting about this tomorrow to see what how the council is going to take forward the additional funding they've got in relation to that proposal, to see what it will actually apply to in terms of refurbishing of play areas, etc. I would have to say that North Lanarkshire Council, between council funding and funding we'll have from third parties in relation to community benefits, in the next year we'll be spending over £1 million on play areas. So there's quite a lot of investment. The council does invest quite a lot of money in play areas, and it's something that we're quite proud of in terms of the number of facilities that have been done. This additional funding is of course very welcome, and we'll have a further discussion to see how we can best take that forward.
Right. Sorry, thanks for that, Chair. If I can just come back 1 second, Matt. So there is numerous private areas now in the Airdrie area which are welcome, most of which have got privately owned and run play areas. They will. What we're saying is they will not be getting any funding from council unless it's on council-owned land. Is that correct?
That's certainly my understanding of it, Councillor Beveridge. Is that it's not private land. It's council-owned facilities.
Thanks.
Anybody else wanting to come in?
Is that Councillor Coyle?
Councillor Coyle.
Hi, thank you. It's just to see, Matt, can we maybe look at maybe the villages, especially Plains, where we've got the play parks and that. I know they put a children's play area facility there, but it's just maybe to see if we can maybe do something up there as well.
Matt?
£2.5 million for Plains and £2.5 million for Calder Crooks. That'll do it.
Second that, Tommy.
Yeah, as I say, if we've got play facilities in an area, we can certainly look to see if there's anything that needs to be done to enhance the play facilities that are there, but we can't give any guarantees. We put additional facilities within areas. We have got guidelines that we operate in relation to that. But if anybody got any specific ideas, we're more than happy to have a look at that and feedback.
What about something like football pitches so it can back in there, Chair?
Okay.
Football pitches are not something that's something to do with the sports pitch strategy, Councillor Coyle. It's not something that I could comment on tonight, but it's certainly something that I'm sure will be picked up through the sports pitch strategy.
Is that everybody? Anybody?
Councillor Damasio.
Councillor Damasio.
Hi there. It's just to come back in on the kind of council-owned versus private land kind of topic. Not suggesting for a moment that the council should be funding private developments, etc. But have we had in the past, and is it something we can look at in the future? You know, potentially some of the proposals that have been deleted at the moment. Is it something that we have and can look at in relation to where you have, particularly when you've got well-established communities such as Monks Avenue and Air Drive, whereby the council could adopt a strip of land, which will therefore allow the council to, help provide the services that our, taxpayers and communities deserve for their kids, for their physical and mental health.
Can I come in there, Chair?
Yes, Alan, you can.
Well, let's not just limit it to that area. Let's if you're doing that, you'll need to look at the whole in North Lanarkshire, because I've got lots of areas there that would benefit from such adoption. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As it's something that's something I've looked at in terms of taking over or purchasing land to do that. Not certainly through the local development programme. It's not something I've considered at this stage, Councillor Damasio.
Thanks, Matt. Anybody else? Let's see, do we move on? This is now, we're on to, it's still number 9, but paragraph 3, it's Local Outcome Improvement Plan, LOIP, update from Christine Boyle and Judith Brainmer and Lynn Adam.
Chair, just before we do that, I think Councillor Damasio had his hand up there. He's put a note in the chat
Councillor Damasio.
Yeah, it was just to come back in finally. Sorry, Sharon, on the last point. I just wanted to emphasise I wasn't suggesting that we should be throwing money at these private landowners for such a purpose. You know, if that was something we may look at in the future, then that would be, you know, seeking permission or you know, a nominal fee of £1 or just handing the land over to us, etc. I'm not suggesting we throw money at private landowners for that purpose.
Right, we'll now move on to number 3, and it's Local Outcome Improvement Plan, LOIP, and it's an update for Christine Boyle, Judith Bremner and Lynn Adams.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Just a very brief update. The board will remember at the last meeting the Local Outcome Improvement Plan was endorsed by the board. So it was just to give you a very brief update, just to let you know that the LOIP report is at the final stages of publishing, and we're hopeful that that should be ready in the next couple of weeks. So we'll get that out and wide as we can. Today we'll do a brief update, but moving forward, what we're hoping is that we'll be able to provide an update in advance of the meetings, and we'll get that out with the papers for the meeting so that you're able to see that and you're able to then come back to the meeting and ask us any questions or ask for any updates following that. I'm going to kind of pass over to Judith, if that's okay. Lynn's not going to do it part of the update today. Irene Lester would be the other person who's involved in supporting the Local Outcome Improvement Plan, but Irene's doing the minutes tonight, so we don't want her to be doing about 5 different things as well. So Judith's going to kind of take us through a brief update on where we're at. That's okay, Chair.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Well, as Christine says, the plans were agreed at the last meeting, so now, you know, it's the process of taking them forward. We had a meeting with Airdrie Action Partnership last Monday night, and they've agreed to take the plans forward. And as agreed previously, the subgroups are poverty, mental health and wellbeing, COVID-19 recovery, which incorporates digital inclusion. So I was particularly pleased to hear the update from Lynn earlier on about the progress that's been made in that direction. So the key contacts for each subgroup have been identified, but they're primarily volunteering community groups, some elected representatives and statutory partners involved in the Airdrie Action Partnership. However, additional representation is welcome from Airdrie Community Board members if they wish to get involved. The subgroup meetings have been arranged and will take place early to mid-September. The first being the poverty one, which is on the 6th of September. Mental health and wellbeing is on the 13th of September, and COVID-19 is on the 20th of September, and the invitations have already been sent out, but as I say, if anybody from the board wants to join that. So the support for each subgroup is provided by poverty, it's Irene Lester, who's North Lanarkshire Council Community Partnership Officer. Mental health and wellbeing is Lynn Adams, Health Improvement Senior for NHS Lanarkshire and Airdrie locality, and COVID-19 recovery is me, Judith Bremner, Development Officer with Volunteer Action North Lanarkshire. So we're extending an invite for any community board members that want to be involved in the subgroups. You can contact any of us directly, and I'll put the details in the chat bar. Thanks.
Thanks, Judith. Anybody, any questions? No? No. Right, moving on to agenda 10 in the agenda, it's petitions. There's none to be presented for this meeting. On to number 11, it is community matters, input from local community groups, agenda item from community groups. And the first one is requests, is a request for an update regarding facilities upgrade at Airdrie Leisure Centre, and it's Nikki Miller.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just speaking as an individual community member, if that's okay. I'd asked for this point to be raised at the last meeting, but unfortunately I had to put my apologies in. It was my understanding it wasn't discussed, and if we're really looking for kind of real community involvement, what I'd kind of asked is, could these minutes of this meeting just be sent out a little bit more timeously? Because if we've asked for something to be discussed and I don't hear maybe for 3 months what the updates have been at the meeting because I wasn't at the meeting, then it's very difficult for me as a community member to really understand what progress has been made. I do understand it was on YouTube, but obviously I can't sit through a full meeting like this. Would that be possible to get that sent out to everybody more in advance rather than waiting to the next board meeting to get the minutes?
Matt, would that be ideal?
Chair, we will endeavour to get the minutes out 4 weeks from the date of the meeting. It's not always the council that takes the minute of the meetings, it's partners in Voluntary Action North Lanarkshire and NHS Lanarkshire. And we will try and get the minutes out as soon as we can. They were a bit later after the last meeting for unavoidable reasons. They're normally out much quicker than that, but we will endeavour to get them out as quick as we can.
No, I appreciate that. I wasn't aware there was a kind of rough timescale. I suppose it was really just I live up towards the Rushes, and the football pitches that were taken away at the Ho Hills area as part of the development of the new housing. My understanding there was funding attached to that to upgrade facilities at the Airdrie Leisure Centre. So it was really just to ask for an update on what that funding has been allocated, if it has been allocated, or whether there's going to be the ability to contribute to what that funding could be used for at the Leisure Centre.
Chair, I can come in just to give an update on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, Matt, on you come.
Yeah, there is a development being planned there, Nikki, and it's actually, we're asked about for further information this week. There is information available on the e-planning website that gives you information about what's been planned up there, about a new 3G pitch and running track, etc. in that area. And there is compensatory funding linked to that from the pitches at Ho Hills that will go towards that investment. But there is full details available on the e-planning site that will allow you to have a look at it and also provide any comment in relation to that. And that's open to, that's publicly available. We can send out the link if anybody wants to see that.
That would be perfect. To be honest, it was really raising a point about the kind of much used running track, because I think it's something as Airdrie that it's a very busy facility and actually obviously is very run down now. So that would be helpful. That was my point, just to see what the funding was going to be used for and if it was going to be used towards like the running track and areas like that.
We'll send it out and you can see the fairly ambitious plans that are in there.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. The next, anybody else any questions on that one?
John, can I connect? It's Michael.
Michael.
I'm very, very quickly as chair, just to Nikki.
Yes,
Nikki, just so you're aware, I did see the planning application for it. I think it was last week or the week before. And Matt's quite right, it's now on the e-planning site. Now, I've not had the chance to look at it yet, but just so you know, it is out there to have a look at. So it's worthwhile having a wee chance to get a read and see what it says.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else? No. We'll move on to the next one, and it is excessive vegetation growth on cycleways and paths, and it's Dr. Glenn. You're on mute, Dr. Glenn. You're on mute, Dr. Glenn.
Yes. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, this is a concern to those of us who are trying to encourage people to walk, take exercise, get out into nature, get the benefits that come both physically and mentally from their well-being for doing that. So to find that paths are overgrown with nettles and brambles at eye height is simply unacceptable. And it makes it not only very difficult for walkers, it makes it very difficult for cyclists. And as for children, people think twice about taking them out because they're just at the very height that they will be well and truly lacerated by the nettles and the brambles combined. So please do something about this. It's more important than who owns the land. It's about our well-being, and that is a prime requirement here, where so many people are unwell, overweight, and neglected in their healthfulness of their minds. So please tackle this. It's an emergency.
Matt, we'll give this to you.
But all I can say, but we can link in with Dr. Glenn to see what areas that she's referring to, and we'll make sure that it's passed on to our street scene team. And if it's the responsibility of the council, I'm sure they'll pick up on that.
Anybody else on this matter?
Thank you.
Dr. Glenn? Anything else? No. We'll move on to the next one, and it's assistance with interpretation panels. Previously agreed on before COVID disruption, and it's Diane Davidson, item 9.1 on agenda.
Hi, it's Diane here. I'm speaking as Secretary for Woodhall and Fasking Conservation Group. The area we look after is between Canbro and Calder Bank. We want to promote that, the public paths, and get people using them more. So we feel that these interpretation panels are going to give out more information on the history, the wildlife, and the routes that can be taken, and hopefully help people find it and use it more.
Anybody else on this one?
I would like just to add to that and say that people are not aware of the riches of the area, neither its heritage, nor its wildlife, nor the activities that take place, for example, over the farming year, because we still have active farming there. And there's a story that can be told, and told well, through interpretation panels.
Anybody anything to say on this one?
Chair, could I come in very quickly? It's Michael.
Michael?
Thanks. Just to register my interest, I'm also chair of that group that Diane's talking for. And it's just to obviously highlight and echo what Diane is saying and Anne is saying. It's a very crucial place and very green place. And we would welcome if an application would be accepted at this time to put the interpretation panels as a proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else anything to add to this?
Chair, I don't mind adding. We can get some of your team to kind of link with yourselves to look at putting the proposals together for that, and then we can submit them.
That's great, thank you. We'll move on to the next one. Did somebody want to come in there?
Councillor Damasio, Chair.
Sorry, Paul, I keep for missing you.
It's okay. I'm going in late, that's the problem. Just letting everybody else go before me. No, it's just to clarify, Diane, it's referred to that this was previously agreed on. Could someone clarify?
The
installation interpretation panel. What was? I'm just wanting to clarify what was agreed. I can't remember.
Well, it was agreed that we would get between 4 and 6 interpretation panels on the council-owned land at the access points. We started liaising with who's her name again?
Sorry. Sonia Pittman, was it at the time?
Yeah, it was Sonia Pittman, but it was during the winter and the meetings kept getting cancelled because of bad weather, and then it went into next budget, and then COVID struck, and it's just kind of gone by the wayside,
Right.
But there is still a need for it.
So just to clarify, it's been approved and we now just need to sort of move it forward. Right. Thanks.
Sorry, can I just come in there to clarify, Councillor Damasio? It's not actually been physically or been approved written. The discussions took place and the proposal was given consideration. But that's the stage we got, and Diane's quite right to point out that yes, due to the time of the year, the weather, Sonia leaving and then COVID coming in, it's not had the chance to get followed through the process. Hence the reason why we need to get to the application side.
Okay, thanks.
Chair, can I maybe just add as well that part of the interpretation panels is that we need to look at what would be put on them. So that would be part of the discussion in terms of the proposal that would be put forward. So our team can definitely link with yourselves to look at that.
Yep. That information is all more or less ready, good to go.
Is that everything on this one? Yes, well, the next one.
Just very briefly, Chair, just on that, just to say that what we'll do, given the fact that obviously they've had previous discussions on this before, we can add this to the local development programme if the board's happy for us to do that. That's a project that we can consider for future progress.
Thank you.
Okay with that. The next one is Diane Davidson, and is on the any other species. The species, I've lost it actually, but it was in it.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Chair. Yeah, we've kind of taken over looking after, it was a regeneration group. They've kind of passed on to us the community peace garden that's at the bottom of Woodhall Avenue in Calderbank. We've had volunteers clearing it, and it was built on an area where it had been taken over by Japanese knotweed. That was all treated and a lot of money was spent on it. And then with COVID hitting, the subsequent treatments, I believe it's a treatment that gets done every 3 years, hasn't been done, and it's starting to take over again. If we could get on it soon, it's going to be a lot cheaper to treat. But you know, it's how to get these kind of things going. Again, it's not council-owned land. It's I think Matt Costello, I think you were involved with the regeneration group for putting the garden in place. So I'm not sure of the history behind that. So we're kind of at a dead end as to how to get this problem solved.
Yeah. Okay. Again, we'll make sure when the group links in with you, Diane, to pick up on the issues you're experiencing there, and we'll make sure it's passed on to the right team within the council services. I think it is council land, that one. It's just, it was something we did support a project there before, and we'll look into that. We'll get somebody to contact you, get more details and pass it on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Thank you, Matt, again. Any other community group or organisation wishing to provide an update on what they're doing in their communities and what they're involved in? Nobody want to speak? Well, I'll just tell you, I do everything. We're looking for a couple of, we're actually planning some projects within Craigneuk and Petersburn, different sites, the allotment sites, trying to get the kids back into, been back down to the allotments for the primary schools. Just basically, we're looking for some funding, Matt, if you're about. Just basically try and get some things up and running, back some normality. The allotment, we're needing a lot of kind of wood and different things. We've been running for 13 years and things are actually starting to kind of get downtrodden, crumbling and everything else. So I'm looking to link with you, Matt, and try and get some cash or a project going.
Chair, certainly happy again we'll link in with you. We'll get a project proposal forms completed, and we can consider taking that through the community board processes for support. Happy to note that tonight. If the board's happy to look at those projects, and then we can start the ball rolling on that.
Thanks very much, Matt. Anybody else on this one for the community?
Well, while we're asking, can I?
Diane, there was, I don't know this man's name, he's not put on his bar.
I think it's John. There's John had put his hand up there.
Hi, John had his hand up.
Can I maybe explain? This is Ian McIndoe speaking. We were on my house computer, we weren't getting anywhere. So we moved up to my son's house, and he's called John. But it's actually Alec Forrest who's going to speak. So sorry for the confusion, but it's because we had to move houses and try and gain entry to the meeting through another computer. which have been successful. So just to explain the confusion, that it's Alec Forrest who's going to speak.
Okay.
For the
Is Alec
Friends of
here?
Centenary in West End Park. Sorry for the confusion, folks.
It's okay. Is Alec there?
That's a good introduction, isn't it?
Where's Alec?
The Friends group are, as you know, are working on the parks in Centenary and West End Park. We put a proposal form in June regarding getting the welcome to Airdrie sign fixed. I talked to Matt about it before. I don't see it on this list here. And how do we go about finding out if we could get some work done on it?
Matt, I keep putting this back to you again.
Again, it's no problem, Chair. Again, Alec, we'll make sure that there's one of the team is in contact with you to have a look at that proposal form, just to make sure there's got everything we need in it for it to take it forward. But again, we can add it to the list of projects that need to be considered, and we'll absolutely get somebody to speak to you about it.
Thank you very much.
Chair, can I just add to that we've previously circulated the proposal forums for community groups and organisations, but we can get that recirculated to you as well, so that you've got a chance to see what should be included within that. But certainly, as Matt said, we've got one of your team to kind of link in with yourselves on that.
There was an Irene Lister we were dealing with.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anything to add?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Beveridge, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah,
Councillor
thanks.
Beveridge.
Thanks, Sharon. Sorry, Chair. See, I would have thought it advantageous. See when groups are looking for funding, that they would actually get it prior to this meeting. I take it that's the normal course of events would be the groups would request funding prior to just coming here verbally. That I take it as the case.
Yeah, I think that's what Christine was referring to. We have issued the project proposal forms to all the groups, people on our mailing list, etc., and encouraged them to complete those forms and submit them for further discussions with the team. That's the process, rather than doing it through the community board process. Obviously, we don't want to stop people coming along and raising the issues for their own areas, absolutely. But the project proposal forms are something that we'd really be keen for groups to pick up on, complete, send in to us, and then we can try and take the process forward from there.
Thank you, Alan. Diane Davidson.
Well, he's just sort of said we'll get onto these forums. We've taken over the use of the container at the we call it the Peace Garden, the community garden, and we've got some quite high-end equipment in there now as well that local volunteers are using. We've got it quite secure, but there was quite a bit of damage done with the knotweed before, so there's some quite large holes in the bottom of it and some weak spots that we could be doing a wee bit of help with that as well, just to kind of keep it more secure. And it's looking quite shabby as well.
Chair, can we maybe take this off the table, Diane? We'll have a chat with you directly about it, rather than go through all the detail of the specific case.
Yep. Right, move on with this one. Right, we're now into the input of the community planning partners, and it's police, and it's Sergeant Alan Hendry covering for Inspector Claire McGee.
Hello, can you hear me? Quick introductions. Hope this mic's working okay. Alan Hendry, Sergeant at Airdrie Community Policing Team, started here in late June, taking over from Edgar. Claire McGee, who you mentioned, was or is the inspector here, but she retires next month. And just so you're all aware, Inspector Neil MacLeod will take over her post. I believe the plan is that he'll arrive in the next couple of weeks, and all going well, he should be in place then. I've had a look at the video of the last meeting just to see what Inspector McGee covered that you might want an update on. There was a couple of items raised at the last community board meeting. Willful fire raisings. So in the last 3 months, we've had 4 in the Airdrie area, which is relatively low number over the time span. One of those is detected. 3 inquiries remain ongoing with forensic and CCTV inquiry, etc. And those sit with our CID based at Coatbridge. Pleased to report that none of those fire raisings were to dwelling houses, and no injuries were reported. They relate to outbuildings. One was a bus shelter, and then there was cars within driveways. Another fire that I'm sure everyone will be aware of was the one at Guides, which was a large-scale incident that the fire service took the lead on, but that wasn't deemed to be a criminal act. The other thing I wanted to cover was an update on house breakings. Domestic house breakings have been 3 in the last 3 months. All remain undetected at the moment, with inquiries still ongoing in 2 of those. So opportunities for detections with those. 2 of those are relatively recent, as I say, and still ongoing. I suppose the saving grace for those 3 was that the houses were unoccupied at the time. No one was within, so obviously upsetting instance. And for instance like that, we do offer victim support and community safety referrals, etc. Moving on then to other items that have been of note in the last few months. In terms of disorder, the area that I'd say by far and away has been most prevalent was in Calder Crooks, and that tended to be around the area of the train station and then onwards to Hill End Reservoir to Lily Loch, where we were getting large groups of youths congregating down in that area during the hot weather, particularly in the summer holidays. Tends to be kind of low-level disorder, but just with the sheer numbers, broken bottles, swimming within the water whilst under the influence, etc. There were obviously welfare concerns around that, and then the subsequent clean-up for the people who were trying to enjoy the area or run their businesses in the area. We tried to tackle that over the course of the summer holidays in particular, and enlisted the help of the British Transport Police, our own mounted branch, and our response colleagues assisted ourselves in the community policing team. We also had social media messages passed out regarding matters around water safety, etc. Our approach there was to have a mix of plainclothes patrols and high visibility uniform presence. As a result of that, large groups were moved on from the area. 15 parental alert letters were issued to youths who, although not involved in criminality, we thought it would be beneficial for their parents to be aware of the circumstances in which they'd come into contact with the police. Parental alert letters are exactly as they sound. It's to let parents know where their kids have been, because they're not always aware that they've been in those areas. We had alcohol seized as well. And I'd like to thank also the members of the public who reported those incidents throughout, because I understand there were a number of repeat calls in relation to that. It was quite challenging just due to the kind of remote nature of where the children were going. That's sort of a tailed off toward the end of the summer holidays, and in the last month there's only been 1 call in relation to that issue, which we'll obviously continue to monitor. And I'm aware that Councillor Beveridge has been in touch regarding some further issues that may have occurred there, and I'll get in touch with Councillor Beveridge to discuss that. Another area which was prevalent for youth disorder just really in the last few weeks, but particularly over the space of around a week or 2, we had a number of vandalisms in the Clarkston area, predominantly youths throwing stones, breaking windows in an area where there were a number of elderly residents, and throwing stones at cars. We've increased our patrols in that area and made it a focused area for patrols, getting some assistance from other departments when the community policing team are off duty, and also getting our community safety officer out to speak to some of the vulnerable residents who were affected by that. It seems to have been a sporadic incident, where there was a number of reports over a short period of time, and then they've tailed off. So I'm hopeful that that issue has kind of died down now, but obviously that's one we'll also keep an eye on. In general, in relation to antisocial behaviour, joint visits are now back on a weekly basis with North Lanarkshire Council's antisocial behaviour teams. They're targeted across Coatbridge, Airdrie and Cumbernauld every weekend, engaging with households that have been identified as potentially problematic for disturbances, noise, etc. Antisocial behaviour in general. Speeding continues to be an issue that we get a number of complaints regarding, and that tends to be across a variety of areas, a number of areas. Areas that we get repeat incidences of or reports of, we take note of, and we try and focus our attention on those areas for kind of days of action. Cairnhill, I'm aware a couple of streets in Cairnhill Road, Victoria Place, we've had a kind of repeat reports, and also down in Plains toward Caldercrooks, Learig Road and Airdrie Road. And we were there last night and also a couple of weeks back with the Unipar speed gun as a device we use to detect the speed of the vehicles. And we've had an additional 10 officers trained in the use of that device across Coatbridge and Airdrie in order that we can maintain speed checks on a more regular basis. The main being to try and get those done in the Airdrie area, certainly every run of shifts or every other run of shifts, depending on demand of what else is going on. And those repeat areas remain on a list for attention. Lastly, if I may, I wanted to raise the issue of an increase in thefts by shoplifting. There was a reaction plan run last week in the Coatbridge area. My colleague from Coatbridge had analysts look at the crime trends in relation to shoplifting across our subdivision, which covers Coatbridge, Airdrie and Cumbernauld. And across that broad area, there's an 18% increase year on year in reported shopliftings.
Alan,
sorry.
If you can move this along, because we're actually running out of time.
Sure. It was just to let you know
Sorry for that.
No, you're quite all right. Briefly then, we've identified some repeat offenders and targeted those with plans to manage them. One male was recently given a year's sentence in relation to repeat shopliftings and breaches of bail, and we'll continue to monitor those offenders who repeatedly come to our attention. And I'll be happy to take any questions if we have time.
Anybody, any questions quickly?
Chair, it's Mike. We'll come in very quickly for Sergeant Hendry, please.
Yes.
Hi, Sergeant Hendry. Welcome to Airdrie. I'm obviously in regular contact. It's Michael McBride here from Cairnhill Community Council. I'm in regular contact with two of your officers who are very helpful, Caroline and Fraser, who are currently there just now. And just as you were talking about, just to echo what you said about the speeding on Cairnhill Road, it's been brought up again to me from a few residents again, so we welcome your focus again. And it's from Cairnhill Road right round towards Calder Bank by Ayr Drive. And I'm also picking up that people are very concerned about the road from Cairnhill down to Ross Drive, going towards Siteside. It's becoming a bit of a speed trap around there. And Martin Street in Cairnhill is becoming an issue as well. So it was just to give you that small update on those couple of streets. Thank you.
Anybody else, anything to ask Alan at that?
Sharon, I come in just a wee quickie.
As long as it's really quick, Alan.
Yeah, will do, Sharon. I promise I'll give you a word. Alan, I'd like to thank you and welcome you to Sunny Airdrie. And thanks for the attention that you've given us so far. I've spoke to other councillors regarding this as well. See the service, the 101 service, and I'm not sure if you can do anything about it. Dialing 101 is absolutely diabolical. I've spoke to loads of people who are fed up phoning the police, reporting incidents 101, and they just cannot get through. It's absolute. It's a shambles of a service. And I've also spoke to other councillors as well. What we would welcome in the future, if possible, would be a regular input to the elected members from the officer in charge charge of the Airdrie Police Office, if that's possible. Thanks.
Sorry.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I put myself back on mute, sir.
Can we come back in just now, Chair?
Yes, Alan.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you're reporting some issues with 101. That's obviously something that at my level I don't have influence over, I'm afraid to say. But if I could find out for you who you would direct your query to, I can certainly pass that by to you, Councillor. Sorry, in regards to a regular input, I didn't pick up on what you were looking for there. Sorry, Councillor, can you just...
Yeah, in the past, the elected members used to maybe about 4 times a year or so, 2 or 3 times a year with the local officers, and I found that beneficial. And I've spoke to a number of my colleagues, and they found that beneficial as well. Given the change of regime at Airdrie Police Office, I wonder if that would be possible to resurrect that. Thanks.
Sure. If you want to get in touch with me, just I know you've got my email, and we can have a discussion about that and see what suits.
Can we actually?
I'll liaise with my other colleague, Airdrie councillors, just to see if they agree with me prior to doing that. Thanks.
Okay.
Can we move on with this one and bring in the Scottish Fire and Rescue, David Boyle? I'm not being rude or anything, but we're really running out of time.
Aye, thanks, Chair. I'll try and be as brief as I can then. I had circulated a report, so hopefully everybody's had a wee chance to have a look at my report. I'll take any questions at the end of my wee update. Just regarding Gweedies, my colleague for Police Scotland, Sergeant Henry, had mentioned the fire at Gweedies. That was a significant fire for us. Obviously, an institution within the Airdrie locality. I'm pleased to report there was no casualties. However, it is bad for the community, but it was nobody hurt, and that was the main thing for us in that incident. Within my report, there's a consultation just now about UFAS, unwanted fire alarm signals. Can I please urge you all to have a wee look at that? Click on the link and complete that survey. That is finishing on the 11th of October. Recently within North Lanarkshire, there was a merge between North Lanarkshire and South Lanarkshire areas within the fire service. This led to basically there was an area commander's post was put elsewhere within the service, and the area commander for North Lanarkshire is now the area commander for Lanarkshire, which is North Lanarkshire and South Lanarkshire, which is amalgamating the health boards. We're Police Scotland as well, and also our regional partners. Back to the station, with that merger, there has been some space released within the station because our fire safety enforcement officers have now been put to a central point with our South Lanarkshire safety officers. That's left some room, so I'm planning to open up a community room. It's a community fire station. Obviously, we're seeing a wee spike with COVID just now, but once that calms down, I would like to have a room where the community can use, actually just have a lock on the door, a keypad, and anybody can come in. Even if we're out at an incident, they can come in and use that. We have got training packages for CPR, or if people are needing it for meetings. Within the station as well, we've got our fire reach will be up and running again, hopefully soon, and we're also starting youth volunteer scheme, and we have recently advertised for instructors. That is ongoing just now. We have shortlisted some candidates for that, and I'll give you an update later on once that has been realised. And last but not least, you'll realise there's legislation coming out within the next 6 months in February to do with smoke detectors. Give you a wee quick overview. If you're in rented accommodation, your landlord should have linked alarms anyway, because they are tied into the electricity, so they're tied into the mains. They should all be linked, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. If you're a homeowner, unfortunately, you'll fall under this legislation. The policing of that, I would say, would probably be your house insurance, and also if you're maybe selling your house under a home report. I would urge you all, as for safety, but there is a cost incurred in that as well. It is legislation. After this, I'll circulate links to the Scottish Government site and to the Scottish Fire and Rescue Services website with frequently asked questions. And hopefully that's been brief enough and I can take any questions.
Anybody, any questions? No, I don't think so, David. Thank you very much for your input there. With fear.
Right, thank you.
The next one is it's a potential update from NHSL Health Improvement, and it's Anne Alexander or Lynn Adams. Adams. No.
Chair Anne Alexander's not at the meeting tonight, and Lynn has just returned to work just now, so I don't think there's an update tonight.
Okay, we'll move on, and it's there a potential update from Vanel for Judith Bremner.
Judith's left the call, I think, Chair.
Yeah.
Right, we'll just any other business, competent business, anybody wants to bring up? Margaret McGreevy, Councillor Coyle. It's no Councillor Coyle, it's Councillor Damasio.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry.
It was Margaret first and then...
So I'm Margaret McGreevy. I'm actually the service manager in Airdrie locality. Unfortunately, I don't have a video feed, so I'm quite pleased you can't see my picture. But anyway, just really a couple of things. One is the scaffolding at Airdrie Community Health Centre. It's still up, and the issue around that, as you know before, is because of safety. So there's no further forward on that. The other thing is around the COVID. Just to give everybody a wee update, I'm pretty sure that you're watching all media and the news, and the cases of positive COVID have increased, and there's certainly more people within the acute sides with COVID. However, there does seem to be a reduction in the amount of people who have actually died through COVID. This is putting quite a lot of pressure, as you imagine, on the acute sites. So really, you can actually get the information on the daily COVID data. That there's a link that you can join, and that will tell you all the information that you require around that. Flu immunisations. The week beginning the 13th of September, the flu immunisations for the under 5s will start in Airdrie Community Health Centre. And from next week, all school children will start to be immunised against the flu. This year, it's including secondary school pupils and teachers and support staff. So that's roughly about 100,000 people. So again, that starts next week.
Thank you, Margaret. Anybody else? Councillor Damasio.
I'll keep this brief, folks. Councillor Morgan raised the issue earlier on when we were on the delivering digital locally. It's to ask Matt in the first instance, is it normal practice if we have a council officer presenting something that they would be asked to provide something that can be circulated in advance of the meeting? Lynn gave a very good presentation, but there was nothing physical. The other two officers, John, great presentation, and the housing strategy update as well. We had something on screen, but it would be very useful to have something circulated in advance. In both those cases, the winter service policy paper from last week from committee, for example, could quite easily be distributed just for people with, the councillors who are attending these committees. I think it'd be useful to ensure that something's circulated in advance. A lot of people pick things up differently by reading, listening. Some people have got hearing difficulties, etc. So I think it'd be useful to ensure that happens going forward.
Matt?
Yeah, well, we do try and issue the papers as much as we can prior to the meetings taking place. Sometimes the presentations, for example, aren't always available until the person's coming to do the presentation. But certainly there's no issue with us sharing what we have, and we'll make sure that's done in future meetings, Councillor Damasio.
Thanks, Matt. Anybody else? Any business to bring up? No? No, we're all happy. Right, the next date, the next meeting is on Monday, the 29th of December, November 2021 at 6:30 to 8:30. Thank everybody for coming, and I'll speak to you all later. Thank you.
Thanks, Sham.
Bye, folks. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
I hope I didn't do too bad.